This is Comic Collector Geek, Alan McCullough, and I'm with Andrew Thomas, Canadian artist, writer as well? Or?
No, I'm an artist and a letterer.
Letterer?
So
Okay.
by trade, I'm a comic book letterer.
Okay, so calligraphy master.
Not the master, but it's typography, and there's a whole different world in that alone. But lettering is it's putting the dialogue into the balloons and the sound effects and color coordinated. There's a whole thing that goes into it. Yeah.
So were you a comic book collector as a child, or?
No, surprisingly, I didn't really get into comics seriously until the New 52 from DC. Yeah, it was the perfect jumping on point. And then when it ended, a few years later, that's when I jumped off. So I just have a complete run of like New 52, Batmans and Supermans and all that, and that was it. And then I started going from collecting comics to creating comics, and that's been basically what I've been doing ever since.
So what was the first comic that you kind of worked on?
So the very first self-published book that I ever did was called Post-Human, and it was kind of like a post-apocalyptic, gritty take on Inspector Gadget.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I like Inspector Gadget.
Yeah, me too. I'm a big fan as a kid too, so I'm like, this would be really cool if it was taken more seriously and given an actual a proper storyline. So we did one issue of that, just to kind of like a what if
for fun.
For fun. And then about a year later, I teamed up with a writer from Timmins, Ontario, and we collaborated on the current series that I work on, which is called Auric of the Great White North, and he's basically, and that's this character right here. It's basically the premise is that back in 1912 he used to be a gold miner, and while working in the mines one day they unleashed this mysterious gas that affected everybody,
and it becomes
everybody turns into like a different monster, right? So this Inuit goddess appears before him, for Auric, and she gives him the power to control the transformation. And she's like, now that you have this gift, it's your job to kind of like defeat all the monsters. So he spends like the next 100 years, fighting this war.
So he's like immortal?
I would say not so much immortal, but he just has a longer life expectancy. And I was like, I guess it just gives him extra lives, longevity. I think that's the word. So the series proper takes place in the present day, about 100 years after, when he's already 100 years after he fights the war, he retires, and then about a decade later they start showing up again. So that's the mystery, is like, why are they showing up again, who's doing this? And now it's got an old man Logan vibe to it, because now he's like, I'm too old for all this stuff, so losing a step along the way.
But he still has to fight new monsters and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. So that's Auric, and then from Auric, I jumped onto Captain Canuck, doing some cover art.
I didn't realize Captain Canuck was still going.
Oh yeah, back in 2015, a company called Chapterhouse acquired the rights to Captain Canuck, and they just basically did a full reboot.
Wow.
Yeah. Which is still going on to this day. So they hired me to do the lettering for Captain Canuck, and I got the opportunity to do some covers, to the point where they just hired me outright as their in-house letterer. So I got to do all of their spin-off titles, and it's still going to this day. So it keeps very busy. And
so is it a monthly issue, or is it bi-monthly?
It can. So they've changed the model nowadays, now almost like to just like mini-series arcs, and they'll just put it out, so like the first season is like 6 issues, the next one will be like 5 or 6 issues, and then now the model has been 4, kind of like Dark Horse.
Yeah.
So they'll do 4 issues, and then and then put it to trade, work on the next thing, work on the different spin-off titles that are all part of the same universe. So it's got like Captain Canuck has its own comics universe now. And yeah, so that was just one, I guess it was just one aspect I didn't really consider, was finding a career in comic book lettering, because that's where all the jobs were coming from. That's where all the work was. So I was doing about lettering professionally for about 7-8 years now at this point.
And do you do much actual like art like I don't want to say like
Like the actual drawing. Sometimes when I do the covers, I will, or working on Auric, but
any of these covers that you've done here? Or?
Yes. So these here's a Catholic these Catholic Canuck covers that I've drawn over the years, and then just recently I got to do the cover for Star Trek: Strange New Worlds, which is a huge deal for me because I'm a huge Trekkie. And I didn't know it at the time, but I was told that it is the very first Canadian retailer exclusive in Trek comic history. And I was very surprised by that because I'm like, really?
Now you're in like that Hall of Fame.
Sure, yeah. So I'm really surprised by it, and now I hold that badge of honor, very very proudly. So,
that's cool.
And I got to work with, and I still got to work and still work with Kevin Smith on his comics with Secret Stash Press and Dark Horse.
I see like Trailer Park Boys here and stuff like that.
I got to meet them too. Yeah, the Trailer Park Boys. I got to meet them. So yeah, with Kevin Smith, he has 2 books out under with Dark Horse called Quick Stops and Masquerade, which I also work as a letterer. And
so that's under Kevin Smith. Masquerade.
Yep.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. It's an original superhero. Well, not superhero, but it's an original story about a very popular social media influencer who is secretly a mass murdering vigilante.
Yeah, we all are.
Sure.
Actually,
And but because to avoid being recognized, she wears this device on her head that basically changes the look of her face. Hence that masquerade. And Quick Stops takes place in Kevin Smith's View Askew-niverse movie universe. And it's an anthology series, that takes each issue focuses on a different character and tells a story, and that's it. Yeah. But we're back in November with Volume 2 of Quick Stops, which is actually going to be a mini-series about the origin of movies.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
So I've...
sort of like a historical comic?
Yeah, I would say it's a historical, origin of the character and where that franchise came from in his movies. So to be part of that, also it is, extremely, it's just kind of, I'm just honored to be a part of that, journey with him to tell his story. So as a regular regular letterer and then occasional comic book cover artist. So and then just the journey continues.
Were you ever in the case where you could create your own characters, where you get to design the character in terms of the look and feel?
Not with Kevin Smith, but I did for in the Chapterhouse universe. I actually helped design a villain.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They actually helped me design a villain, and me and the editor kind of went back and forth, kind of perfecting the design. So I got to do that. His name is Acid Abraham, and he actually appears in the 3rd volume of Northgard.
Okay.
So that was a really cool thing to do. Oh, and I can't believe I completely, slipped my mind. But for the rebooted version of Captain Canuck, a second person dons the mantle, and I actually got to design his Canuck suit.
Oh, so it's like the new.
It's like a new. Yeah. Well, Kalman Andrzejowski designed the rebooted Captain Canuck that came out in 2015. Tom Evans is the guy under the suit. This is Darren Oak, so this is a new guy as Captain Canuck.
So new chapter.
Yeah, new chapter of Captain Canuck, and they said, "Hey, do you want to design the new suit?" And I'm like, "Yeah."
Sure, why not? That's
So
cool.
I did that. Yeah, I completely forgot.
That's really cool.
So it's just these little, these little moments, these little things. I cherish them forever.
That's fun. So yeah, I appreciate that you did this interview with me, and
absolutely.
I'll have to give you all your information, and I'll put it in my description so people can check you out on. Are you on Instagram?
I'm on Instagram at the Fat Man Who Letters.
Oh, see?
Yep.
Fat Man Who Letters?
I'm on Twitter or X.
Hey, I hate that.
So Instagram. I'm also on Blue Sky and Threads. I'm just just because.
Okay, so I'll definitely link to your Instagram, and people can check you out there.
Sounds good.
And it was great. Thanks for doing.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much.
And bye for now, guys.